Hello there and welcome. Today I will talk about some practical work on separation. I will talk about science and modern society. I have some meetings from Ouspensky and also some cosmology from Gurdjieff. If I just finish off something from last week, this image, by the way, means that you work against the planetary body in order to make the real body, that is represented by the plus and minus sign, because it is a whole octave. And what we call the planetary body is an accreted structure without any real fusion in it. In other words, it is not a unity. If I start with some practical work, walking down the street, separating into the director, the moving center, and the spirit, the feelings, the emotions between it. What I sometimes do is to double the speed of the body walking. And I do it in a way that is not agitated, so that there is enough clarity within that I can observe what is happening. I double the speed of the body walking for a little while, and then I stop and I return to my default pace. And I go again and I observe what is happening. What happens inside? What can you see? Particularly in relation to the interaction between the centers. One thing is that the director seems to vibrate much more strongly when I'm doubling the speed, almost like it's emitting pulses at a faster rate, and is brighter. Although the director is relatively easy to see, the moving center is relatively easy to see, the flow between them is not, because that is what is created by your being particled duty. They are not easy to see because they come into existence through a change in your will, assuming that you have a will. It feels to me that they arise and flow and surge around. Science and modern society. Well, I was looking up the effect of the moon on the tides of the earth, and it seems that the story that we've all been told, that the moon is pulling the water towards it, is not actually true, because otherwise the lakes and the puddles would be rising up, bubbling up when there is a full moon. In fact, scientists have measured the effect of the moon on the tides, and they see now that this cannot explain the cause, and they've come up with some other reasons that they haven't quite finished yet. The next thing is about airplanes. Why is it that the wings provide lift? I'm sure you were told the same that I was told, that it's not because the wings are pushing the air down, but in fact the stream of air above the wing is travelling over a longer distance due to the curvature of the wing. Longer distance, fewer molecules, lower pressure. So there's a higher pressure under the wing, low pressure at the top of the wing, pushes the aircraft up. Recently, some other people, we can call them scientists if you like, but some other people have measured this and determined that it does not explain what is happening at all. And in fact, the explanation can be quite complicated. On Wikipedia, there's 4 or 5 possible explanations to do with the detachment of air streams from the back of the wing and other quite complicated phenomena. So these two instances, as examples, are things that we all know, but we don't know at all. How much of our knowledge in society is like that? If you walk into a cafe, there's 20 people there, there's like an atmosphere around them of things that they're certain about. Science is certain where they'll go if you push them for certainty. What would happen to these people if you robbed from them all their science, all these words that they copy and that are actually incorrect? Even according to the scientific theories, they're incorrect. They are also incorrect because these people have no personal knowledge of it and are treating things in a very cheap way without work. What would happen to these people if you took this away from them? What are people today without these empty words? Everything has been taken from them. God, their family, their culture, their history. They're very vulnerable, really, and they cling on to these little tidbits. There's not much I can do for these people except to go back in history to where it all began and where it actually means something. And that is perhaps to medieval times, where the trades and the guilds were a line of knowledge that extended from the centre, from the aristocracy, into society, creating lines of actual knowledge, work. In each trade there was a master, and then men of the first order, second order, third order, and so on, creating a ray, extending, pulling a ray up into that line of knowledge. That was called carpentry, or tinsmithing, or midwifery. That was a living society, and that was the last time. In about 1350, the Black Death swarmed over Europe and killed half the people there. And those medieval structures were destroyed. And people had to pick up the pieces, just the way we are picking up the pieces in the ruins left after World War I and World War II. There is no blame on this planet, because this planet is frustrating. If I go back to Gurdjieff's idea that the oceans are the blood of the earth, what would have to happen inside somebody for them to feel that that is true? It's quite difficult to feel that that is true, isn't it? If you imagine a grasshopper who maybe lives for a couple of days, looking at you, they live at a very high speed. For them, you are more like a statue. It's hard for them to believe that you, being such a statue, are really alive. You live so slowly compared to their high rate. And it is the same when we look at the earth. It lives slowly, its movements are slow. Moreover, it is a very different kind of intelligence. If it is alive, it is a very different kind of thing to us. I'll read from Gurdjieff. In order, my dear Hussein, that you may meanwhile have a fair representation also of just how far that function called the instinctive feeling of reality, which is proper to every three-brained being of the whole of our great universe, is already completely lacking in the presences of the three-centered beings breeding on the planet Earth, and especially in those of the most recent periods, it will be enough to begin with, I think, if I explain to you only about this, how they understand and explain to themselves the causes why there periodically proceed on their planet those cosmic phenomena which they call daylight, darkness, heat, cold, and so on. All without exception of the three-brained beings of that planet who have attained the age of a responsible being, and even those many and various wiseacrings existing there which they call sciences, are categorically certain that all the said phenomena arrive on their planet, so to say, absolutely ready-made, directly from their own sun and no more hokey pokey about it. What is most peculiar in this case is that absolutely no doubt whatever concerning this persuasion of theirs has ever yet crept into a single one of them. I do understand that this material is very difficult to comprehend, and I feel like I am going out on a limb each time I read it. What Gurdjieff goes on to say, and it is very long and technical, is that the earth is alive and interacts with the sun, interacts with the whole of the cosmos, and there are no ready-made phenomena, just as there are no molecules that are not alive. Everything is alive in a certain way. Human beings are dynamic and very vibrant and noisy and busy. Everything in the universe is alive, even if that aliveness can only be understood by the uncertainty of the movement of electrons in an atom. The interaction between the sun and the earth may be called love, or the response of a child to his father. And when you see your parents and you raise your arms up, there is some kind of inner surge between different people, what we call love, hate, kindness, and so on. If you care to look inside, you could see that there are some sort of cosmic phenomena. Our feelings exist in a range of cosmic phenomena. In the past, in Europe, people would say that you're liverish or you're splenic. They had some knowledge of the relationship between the feelings that people have and their organs, and it was encoded in their language. Perhaps you know some examples yourself. It has been hard for human beings to maintain contact with that kind of knowledge through the Earth's shocking changes, formations or reformations, disasters and wars. It's not been easy for people to hold on. In my own work, I've started to work with emanating energy outwards. I discussed how it works with the Lord's Prayer, but some basic techniques of the 5-element Qigong and the 6 healing sounds involve this. I must say that even in India, in the Indian traditions, they seem to have released that kind of technical knowledge and mastery of subtle materials. Instead, they just want to be saved. Even there in India, I feel less and less certain about things, although I am making a lot of progress, and my teacher and other teachers are also doing excellent and highly technical, concrete work. Sometimes I wish to discuss what the main problem is, but there are several main problems. One is the many eyes that people carry inside of them and identify with. A general principle is that they must be completely dissolved. And special techniques exist to do that, especially in the East. That is one critical part of the spiritual path. Another critical part is that you must have a teacher in the line that you connect with and you follow just like a river, because this world will wash you away unless you do. I happened to see some paintings of the Americas before the Christians conquered it. The people who lived there did not think that they were doing anything wrong. Human beings can become regulated to do quite insane things. One must be cautious and be very diligent. It is by no means easy to understand things. If we consider mankind as a whole, most people are not capable to do the kind of work that I am describing here. God be with them, because they are stewarding the house. And yet the army must be at the frontier. Meetings with Mr. Ouspensky, 1938, April the 4th. Mr. Ouspensky said that this work had not occurred before. Does this mean also that it will not occur again? There is no guarantee. That will depend on you for yourself. Certainly one thing could be certain. It will not happen in the same way. Maybe there will be groups and schools, only not in the same way and not at the same time. Work is the only thing which is not under the law of recurrence, otherwise it is not work. If it is a little conscious, it cannot be under recurrence. Then again, in this particular work, many things will happen quite differently. What was now at a certain time will begin perhaps 20 years earlier. In my childhood, I was greatly attached to a cousin 3 years older than myself who died when she was 10. If her brief life has repeated itself 4 or 5 times since then, my life as related to hers must also have repeated itself. How is this explained? It is very difficult to explain it, and at the same time, mathematically it is very simple. Our calculation of length of this time is based on certain ideas of duration. We say that 10 years are less than a longer life of, say, 50 years. Really, there is no guarantee that it is shorter or longer. I said in one page of the new model, suppose for a moment that what looks to us like different duration is the same duration, but the speed is different. There are many things which we take as the foundation of our world which are really illusions. In any case, it is not difficult to adjust one life to another. But our power of visualization is too small and weak for that. We have to leave it as a problem and understand that it may be adjusted somehow. I can remember things when I was 2 years old which did not happen at all. How can one verify what a baby remembers before it can speak? How did you know they didn't happen? It could be a dream. I had an experience of that kind. I remember when I was quite a child, I was in some place near Moscow and the picture of the place remained in my memory. I wasn't there for about 4 years after that. Then when I went there, I saw it wasn't the same thing as in my memory, and I saw my memory was a dream. As schools are not mechanical, they will never occur. Then if we recur, there is no assurance that we should ever find the system again. No assurance, quite right. It is quite true, but there are many different sides to it. It is quite true that things do recur in exactly the same form, but at the same time one cannot lose anything that one acquired. That means that if one loses one possibility, one can find another. But one can lose only by one's fault, not by the fault of things, although it is necessary to understand that possibilities are not unlimited. Very often I refuse to speak about recurrence because there are many things about it you don't know. You take things too simply. Eternal recurrence means to you that it is eternal. It means always. But there are many different manifestations. Eternal may not be eternal at all. If people live an ordinary life and don't accumulate right influences, don't form a magnetic center, then after some time they lose even the possibility of accumulating magnetic center. They may die out because there is a big competition. There are many things we don't know. The first thing that must be understood about eternal recurrence is that it is not eternal at all. When one comes to the possibility, which is a very rare thing because there are many people who never come to the possibility of development, but when one comes to a possibility, at the same time chances become very small, smaller and smaller. The nearer one comes, the easier it is to lose everything. One has less time. When one comes nearer to the possibility, it actually affects time as time. The time of this person becomes smaller. This is the answer, but not the answer. Less time in what sense? We recur less often? Everybody has his own time. Time must be taken like that. Time is an individual possession. There is no general time. One person has more time, another has less time. All people cannot have the same time. There are people who are very interested in recurrence. They seem to be mostly English and American. I can only think about it in terms of the principle of the farmer in a field and the earth being a field. And if you're a valuable kind of tree, then the farmer will not plough you under. And one has to somehow rip the mask of society's hypnosis off and try to live like a being that longs for the stars and longs for the pure heart. It is almost invisible in the world that we live in, but not too hard to find in the previous literature. As a goal, we must find the flowing light pouring into us. That is why all that present moment awareness stuff doesn't mean anything, because they don't feel the life flow through them. Recurrence always reminds me of the statement Jesus made that blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Inherit the earth. I see the earth cycles go round and round. People ploughed under and over and under again. But some who have reached fusion return as themselves. Others, their work becomes part of the soil itself. If Jesus was a magician, then he was a magician who loved God. He said, "Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." Take care.